Hey everyone, the queen in chess is the most powerful piece. It can move horizontally, diagonally, up and down for all lengths of the chessboard. And it's commonly used in aggressive tactics and checkmate. And this is no different than our overpairs. It's one of the reasons that we can c-bet at high frequencies, we can polarize bets and things like that. It helps kind of control the hand. But one lost thing in these overpairs and the queen is sometimes we need to play defense with the queen. And if we overextend ourselves a little and get a little too aggressive, we can expose and potentially getting trapped. And we can also potentially leave the king exposed. So I want to go over some hands today that kind of highlight what I'm talking about, and we'll go over some hands I actually played towards the end of the video as well that highlight that. So let's dig into it. So this is a single raise pot here where the button raises and big blind calls 9-7-3. And you can see we're already going for a overbet sizing with basically all the overpairs here. A little bounce of the aces. We can get pretty aggressive on this board. And what happens is, as we move along the hand, we can say we get the 2 in the blank turn. We really hammer in bets. This is where we're getting really aggressive with our queen, with our overpair. And when river comes, let's just say it's the deuce here, you can see we're kind of just finishing it off where the expected value of these hands are kind of through the roof. And if you look at kind of the equities here, we're talking 90+% equity of the pot. So absolute stronghold on the hand throughout all 3 streets. We're hammering in barrels on this board texture. But what happens here? So now we have 7-6-4. Still rainbow board, same situation. The button raises, big blind calls. And now our frequency's going down, our sizing's going down. So look at this difference here. I mean, we're barely betting our overpairs. Like what's going on here? So if we dig a little bit deeper, let's notice some differences. First off, let's take a look at our total equity of these hands. So 70+% here on the 7-6-4 board. Okay, and I just switched it to the 7-9 board. The 9-7-3 board. We're talking now 80% plus equity. And let me show you exactly what's going on. So I switched back here to the 7-6-4 board, and let's take a look what's happening here. One thing is the connection here at the lower end. This is big blinds range. It's much, much greater. They have their concentration of these 2 pairs and these sets and these pair plus draw type hands are much greater here than in position. And the second thing to kind of note here is look at all this air in this range. All here, these overcards, where out of position doesn't really have nearly as much. So this creates a twofold situation where now on this more connected low card board, out of position has an increased amount of nuts in their range. So it now has the nut advantage. And they don't have as nearly as much air as they would on the 9-7-3 board. As you can see, like way more air now in out of positions range. These hands once were excellent, either one pair or straight draw, are now just basically air. And then our opponent doesn't have, or the in position does not have as much air in their range as they did before. So those are like the 2 driving forces that have completely changed on a board that may not seem as dissimilar. So what I want to show now is what happens if we decide to just go ahead and bet these overpairs on this low connected board where we're either not familiar with the situation that we really should be checking, or we don't agree with that. So let me show you what can happen. So say we go ahead and we bet for kind of a medium sizing. Our opponent goes ahead and raises, and now we're facing raise, and you can see already we are folding some of these overpairs, which I'm sure most of you probably aren't. But one of the issues is on these future streets, these future barrels, we're gonna have to start folding more of these overpairs. We have 2 more streets to play, and when our opponent polarizes with the large raise, these aren't going to be doing very well. And this is where we're trapping our queen. This is where we're overextending ourselves a little bit on our overpairs. We're getting too aggressive with the overpairs. So that's the first issue with kind of betting these boards where we really need to be checking back the overpairs, where we're overextending ourselves and then thus trapping our overpairs. But there is a second issue if we do this. Okay, here's the second issue. So we go ahead and here's the situation where we do check back most overpairs successfully. Our opponent comes out with a large sizing and we can defend very nicely because we balanced our range. And now we're on the river here. Again, I'm just sticking with the same run out 2-2 just to keep it simple. And so right here, the sizings here, this is for big blind. You can see they can't really leverage large bets. They're just betting the smaller sizing. And why is that? Is because we successfully balanced these overpairs in our range, and now we're protecting our range, aka protecting our king, where we have all these overpairs now that are doing very well as the deuce-deuce run out counters some of the two pairs, and they can just hold their value very well to add to the defense range. Our opponent cannot leverage large bets. Check mark. We did an excellent job. But what happens when we don't have these in our range to the degree that we're supposed to? Okay, and here's where we did not balance enough overpairs in our range. And you can actually just see right here, so this overbet is now getting used. This is the same exact situation, but the difference is we don't have nearly as much overpairs in our range. So now what happens is we have to go ahead and call these ace, queen, ace, jack hands that some mixed frequencies or whatever to balance this out. It becomes much more difficult, and that's why our opponent can now overbet, because we did not balance these overpairs in our range. So we've exposed our king here and potentially put ourselves into checkmate. So there is a great importance to understanding some of these differences in these boards and how we change how we play the strongest hands in our range. It's really important to balance in certain situations, but then you have to understand that on some of these boards, we do need to be way more aggressive, and we can just go ahead and barrel and everything's fine. But there's definitely some of these boards that exist out here that if you're not balancing these into your range, you will get exposed. So let's go over a couple examples that I played at 1000 NL. Okay, so this one we're playing three-handed. This is 1000 NL, and we go for the raise with jacks. Our opponent calls. And in this board, we definitely can hammer larger bets. Again, this a lot of this has to do with the fact we can take multiple strategies, but I think a lot of this would be the simplest strategy because we just have this huge overpair advantage. Of course, our opponent's going to 3-bet, tens plus here, button versus big blind, so they just don't have that part of the range. They don't really have tens. And even eights, they're going to 3-bet a frequency. So we have a large nut type advantage here. And they don't have a lot of two pairs. Of course, there's 10-8 out there, but they don't really have that many strong hands. That's why we can go ahead and leverage a large bet. And big blind does make the call, and it's pretty much a blank turn here. So to me, this is just another situation. This is kind of a green light situation with our overpairs, especially jacks. It's a little bit vulnerable. So we just go for a second barrel. Villain calls again. In 5, it kind of looks like a messy river, but it really isn't. They shouldn't really have a hand like 10-5 or 8-5 in their range anymore besides 10-5 of hearts, because on the turn when we overbet, those hands are mostly folding here. So we don't have to worry as much about two pair. They're not going to really have ace-2 again on the turn, besides maybe ace-2 of hearts, which is probably raising at some point in this hand. Very unlikely. And 6-7 maybe for sure can get in there occasionally. But we do overbet flop, so it may just be the 6-7 hearts, 6-7 of spades combos. There's just not a lot of those, and they shouldn't have pocket fives. So I think that it's a fairly blank-ish river, and I think our overpairs hold very strongly. So now it's time to get aggressive with our queen, and I go ahead and shove it in, and our opponent does call off with king 8, which is great. I mean, we get another 80 big blind bet here, 82 big blinds, I think some people may get a little worried, a little squirmish here. Maybe they bet like 3/4 type sizing or check back, but you're unblocking these 8x, 10x region that we could get value from. So we get aggressive with our queen here. So next hand, kind of similar situation, jacks three-handed again. But look at this board here. So this is a more extreme board of the one we're looking at. We absolutely have to check back a lot of these overpairs. There's a lot of great concentration in the low, medium end here. Our opponent's gonna have a nut advantage here. We're gonna have a lot more air than the board that I just showed prior. So checking back here makes a lot of sense. And you could see a lot of strategies from villains here. Like I think opponents would choose quite a bit of different strategies. I think low medium bet's probably the most common, but if we're just like more concentrated in high card region and we bet all the overpairs, we're already in a very difficult situation. It's only a block bet, so we can definitely float a lot, but we know we're gonna have to face bets on river. But when we have jacks, we can have a bit of a sigh of relief here. We know we can call this bet, and we can probably call a decent amount of river bets depending on the texture. Luckily this time our opponent does check back, but we successfully defended our king here. Like they did have just value and they didn't go for another bet, but that's not always going to be the case. And I think a lot of people will get aggressive here with air in their range. If they don't have one pair, they're going to just put in large bets, probably turn river, for sure on the river, I'd say. And if we don't have any of these overpairs, imagine trying to call here ace 10, ace jack, ace queen, king queen. We can certainly do it depending on the suits, but it just gets a lot more difficult, where jacks is a very comfortable check back, control the pot, control the board, and then call type of situation. Hopefully that kind of highlights the importance of understanding the texture of boards and how we change how we play overpairs. I know sometimes reflexively we get overpair, get excited, and you just want to start c-betting right away. But really pay attention to the board. This isn't just single raise pots, 3-bet pots, 4-bet pots, and adjust your strategy accordingly. And hope this was helpful video for you. Let me know in the comments if you like the format. I'd appreciate it. And if you can subscribe as well and help to get the channel going, I'd appreciate that as well. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. See you later.